call the October 15th meeting of the Bethel Board of Selectmen to order. Let's start with the Citizens Forum. Anything from the citizens that isn't on the regular agenda? We'd love to hear it.
Did you want to outline to the board the work that you've completed and
I could. I don't know if they have the ordinances that I turned in.
they received them in their packages, so they may not have read them, but they do have them.
Okay. So I did, put a cover letter in there with the ordinances, just so that you could get an idea of why a few things were the way they were. We're very pleased that they're completed, and we're looking forward to you working on them. And if there's any questions, I really, truly do believe that all of us would like to participate in any form that you may have as far as questions go, so we could work with you. And that includes the ordinance review committee also.
So I would imagine that next this goes to the ordinance review committee.
She and I met and we discussed that, and respectfully, I'm not as knowledgeable about how the ordinance committee works as some of you. So I had the opportunity to discuss with a couple of you, and you have it's certainly going to be referred to the ordinance review committee, and my guess was that once they completed the work, then it would be referred back to the select board. But I explained that as a guess, because I don't know everything about Bethel, and if I said the wrong thing, I'd like one of you to correct me.
No, I believe that's it, right? It goes to the ordinance review, comes back to the select board. Our ordinance review, I'm assuming this ordinance review committee meetings are open to the public.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's the answer.
We just have to, I'm a member of that, and at least I was a year ago, I think I said that.
You are.
We probably need an organizational meeting there to, Levi was elected chairman or spokesperson, I guess.
Yes, and Sarah, I scanned the ordinances and sent them to Sarah. Sarah has them, so she's on it. She has a list of committee members, so
Okay,
she's on it.
okay. So we'll get that planning process going. Process all the time.
And then those meetings should be posted so that people know ahead of time. All right?
Thank you.
That's how it goes. Thank you. Thank you for doing all the work.
Yes,
Yes.
we appreciate it a lot.
Thank you.
All right, anything else from the floor? All right, approval of minutes.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the 9/10/18.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? All right, public hearings. This time I'd like to open a public hearing for a victualer's license application for Trips Farmhouse Cafe food truck. Any comment from the public? Hearing none. Any comments from the closing the hearing on?
Where is it?
It's a food truck.
And does it have a spot that does it go to various
No,
spots?
they did not indicate where they were gonna put it.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I think you raise an excellent question and point, and the board, through its manager, might want to say that wherever the truck's parked must be safe and have the permission of whatever property owner that it parks on. It can, I don't know again how Bethel would do it, but if it parked in a park area or a town parking lot, do you allow that? Where does it usually park? Do you know if you've been to the food truck?
Me? No.
Yeah.
No, they
I don't know
tend
where
to
it is.
be,
It's new.
usually they keep them at home, and then they go wherever the event is that
Oh,
they've been
right, it
hired.
goes to events, it doesn't,
Right.
it doesn't travel around.
Not usually, not since the dreaded hot dog cart of 2015.
Is that a possibility though? Is there anything prohibiting that or guiding that if they wanted to?
I believe actually the problem with that one was that the cart was not properly licensed.
Registered?
Yeah, or hadn't met with, hadn't met the USDA.
So if this guy wanted to, could he go park inside of Main Street for the day?
That's a good question. I don't think we, and it's something we should probably.
I just curious, I mean, I don't know that, because that's what they do in the city, you see them parked right on the side of the street, and
Right.
I don't know if they.
And they're fast enough moving that by the time someone registers a complaint and someone else responds, they're long gone. Although you could, if someone keeps on showing up at the same spot, you could certainly say, no, you can't do that. But usually the food trucks around here are pretty well mannered and show up when they're invited to an event, like at the Steam Mill Brewing Company or at the Gem. Both of them have hired food trucks in the past to basically cater events, which is kind of an interesting model.
So how do we find out if this food truck is gonna be an event only, or if it's gonna be parking in different places?
Yeah, you may wanna consider, like, what if it wants to go to Davis Park or the Common, or,
Right.
those fairly obvious places.
I'm going to say that due to the growing popularity of food trucks, we're probably going to have to go back and look at that ordinance again and decide how that fits with our public property versus private property.
Yeah, if I owned a burger joint and the guy was parked
Across the street.
selling burgers across the street, I might not feel as though it was kind of fair play, but on the other hand, it's got the permission of somebody to be there. What do you do?
Right.
I don't really have a concern as far as private property, it's just when they get out on the public way, or when they're in the park, or, it's probably not a big deal, whether there's only one or two around, but someday there might be 5 or 6 around, and
Right.
they might all want to be at Davis Park, or, I don't know.
Right, and then, so we're going to have to, we should think about that for the future.
There is also the issue of safety. If children are going to be getting food from the truck, and are they parked in a safe place, not on a turn, or that kind of thing?
Pat, would you like to head up the food truck?
Come on, you beat me to it.
Yeah.
And we should also look into see if there's any state law along those lines.
We certainly won't be reinventing the wheel, or I'm sure there are plenty of
No, sure. All right,
places to look.
any other comments about the application for the Trips food truck? Hearing none, all those in favor? All right, moving on, got a public hearing. I'd like to open a public hearing for the liquor license renewal for Brian's. Any comment from the public? Hearing none, any comment from the board? All right, all those in favor? All right,
Oops, we need a motion in a second.
oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yes, we need a motion in a second.
for both of them.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we didn't know what the other one did.
Well, I make a motion to approve the liquor license application for Chips Farmhouse Cafe and the liquor license renewal for Brian's.
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor? Wow, I thought we were sailing through so well.
I'd like to note that the town clerk is on her game.
Well, I really wasn't, probably the first one.
All right, we have applications for automobile graveyard permits. Should we take all 3 of these at the same time? We have one from Eric Paul, one from Todd Wilson, and one from Jeff Goodrow. Although I think Goodrow is spelled wrong.
No, these are renewals, aren't they?
Yeah, the renewals.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the automobile graveyard permits for the 3 presented.
I'll second.
All those in favor? I'm sorry, you want to discuss that?
Sorry?
Well, all I was gonna say is there anybody here that has any comment about graveyard, the permits and what we're doing? sometimes we'll have people in the audience and
Who are butters or
they
things like that?
don't say anything, so. Sounds like we don't.
Okay. All those in favor? There we go. Next one is a sewer connection application from David Carlson. Do you usually see these?
Yeah, you have to sign them, SIDC permits.
This is an application from David Carlson for 121 Paradise Road. It's a new 3-bedroom, single-family dwelling. And it is, yeah, connecting to public system. So we need to vote on this.
Yes, you do.
So,
I make a motion to accept the sewer connection permit application.
A second.
any discussion? All those in favor? All right. So the next one is for the select board to decide whether or not to approve a resolution to support the SAD 44 cost-sharing committee proposal to amend the current cost-sharing formula based on state adjusted valuation of member towns to one based 85% on valuation and 15% on student count to be phased in over 9 years. With the implementation, implementation of these changes subject to the NURI voters terminating NURI's withdrawal proceedings. So in other words, this doesn't go into effect unless NURI agrees. Has NURI already voted on this?
They
I
have
don't
not.
think they have.
They have not.
That would be in November, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah, so that would be if NURI in November votes to end its withdrawal proceedings from the SAD 44, this cost sharing would go into effect. Can I have a motion?
I believe that the other member towns of SAD 44 have voted this. Bethel would be the last town. And I also am told that Bethel voted to support the last resolution prior to this one. And I met with the superintendent and the town managers from the other communities, and while I don't profess to have a deep understanding of all that's gone on with this, I would recommend to you that you give this serious consideration. If it's a way to resolve this and move this issue ahead and get it resolved and settled, then I would think it would be worth due consideration.
Yes, I guess I would make the motion that we support this wholeheartedly and add our names to the list of those that support it.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I think I would, again, just say that I certainly hear from time to time Bethel folks who ultimately say they're entered into an agreement, they should abide by the agreement and just suck it up, if you will. I guess I would say to those who want to kind of simplify it down to that, you know, just ask yourself if you were a NURI resident and you were paying the prices that you pay, that they're paying per pupil, you might very well think in a different way. This is perhaps not the perfect solution ultimately to the problem, but it is a way to keep our district together and keep everybody ultimately friends here, I think. I just think this is, and if you really want to delve into it and see what would happen if Neri leaves and what would happen to your taxes, the figures are out there, and it'll scare the pants off you if we have to support this whole thing ourselves, so it's a reasonable compromise, I believe.
Just want to say the public hearing that was a couple weeks ago was great, and there was an excellent presentation that's available on the school's website, the school district's website. That spells out all the reasons why. So I think that's a good place to go.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that, like you said, Dawn, that the amount that they're paying is exorbitant per student. I know a deal was a deal, but things have changed since then. And even with these changes, the proposal to go to a 15% student cost, Newry is still paying, their amount will drop from 3.1 million if everything stays the same down to 2.7 million. So it's not like they're going back to whatever else is paying. It's still a very high number, and they're willing to do that by the sounds of it. And I think we have to guarantee that they're willing to do that for this to go through. The other thing that was brought up at that meeting was that other towns have agreed to send out some information to the residents to get those numbers and facts in front of them, because I think that there are people that don't have time to attend these meetings and don't have all that information. I think, you know, a resounding yes from the board would go a long way to making sure that this goes on without a hitch. I'm not sure, you know, a mailer with some figures on it. They discussed it at the meeting. I think they put something together. But they're waiting for Bethel to, I believe, to come on board with that mailer.
Yeah, so my take on this, pretty much all the way along, is that this change in the cost-sharing formula, while clearly Newry benefits to some extent, and I believe Bethel and Woodstock wind up paying more, the reality is it's still a fair assessment. In other words, everyone's still working on the same formula. It's just a different formula. It's not that we've suddenly changed and made it, changed the rules for one group or the other. Everyone still will be paying 85% based on valuation and 15% on student count. If Newry suddenly comes up with 300 more students, they're going to wind up paying more, and everyone else will wind up paying less. So it's still, by its nature, a fair system in that the same rule applies to every town.
Yep, I certainly agree. People need to understand this. It's you know, education again. But it's just terribly easy for someone to simplify it down. Well, they should pay this. Yeah, they're a rich little town, and I ain't voting that way. Don't, you know, put yourself in their shoes, and I think you really make an effort at it, and you'll see things differently.
And I think the Newry's agreement, well, we'll see if they agree to it, to end their withdrawing proceedings is really the most, in many ways, the most important piece of this. I think that's been doing a lot of damage to the morale and development of our school system, whether we feel on a day-to-day basis or not.
I agree. I think that we should go with this. I think this is probably better than the last, just because of that last piece they put in. My only thought on the last piece is, I don't think that they would do this, but it seems like they could vote to terminate their withdrawal proceedings, and then 2 years later, 3 years later, 5 years later, vote to restart them again. And is there anything in here that talks about that or addresses that, or?
I forget. But the reality is that this also can get, like, if that happened, then this could also renegotiate.
We could go back and.
I'm guessing that, you know, everything political is always in flux.
Right. So it's probably very unlikely that would happen, especially given that it's been how many years since this started?
And it's been very expensive.
So it's.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think we should consider this.
I think that also speaks to the fairness piece, like, really any of the towns in the district could vote to start their own proceedings, and so what this does, it would, from my understanding, would terminate the current effort But then it kind of, again, puts everybody back on the same playing field where, you know, if all of a sudden Woodstock feels like withdrawing, they can start, I mean, God forbid, but, I mean, really, you know, there's no law saying that one town isn't allowed to withdraw anymore and the other three could. So, again, it's probably that big deal.
All right, any more comments, concerns? All those in favor?
I think you got a resounding yes.
All right. Good. Next, we go to the update on the wastewater treatment project.
When you hired me as interim town manager, I'm still trying to, by the way, trying to figure out what that is. I told you that given my vast years of experience, it wouldn't be anything I hadn't seen before. As it turns out, that was a big lie. I've worked on this way more than anything else since I started to come up here to Bethel. And we were ready to close the final day of the fiscal year, and rural development pulled the grant portion of the funding. $500,000, what, for all intents and purposes, $500,000. So I've been here just a matter of a few weeks, and I succeed in losing the town $500,000. So I feel really bad about it, but you know, I'm an adult, actually, way more, quite a ways beyond that. And now I think we need to talk about how we got where we are and where we're gonna go now, because it's important, you know, it's really important to me and needs to be to you. What rural development says that they discovered in Washington DC was that they were reviewing our application on the final day, and they realized that Bethel has been paying off debt, and that you no longer qualified for grant funding because you were no longer very much in debt. And while that, to the average taxpayer out there, sounds like something that would make them quite angry, I know I've been fairly angry. If you can accept that explanation, then that's the explanation, then there's nothing. I mean, I can call senators all day long, and I can complain all I want to the paper. There's nothing that I can do. This is the situation we're in. Rural Development's message is that if Bethel can get over the hurt feelings and the anger, and still take all loan funds, that the debt payments you'll be making is less than what you made last year. And I've had to talk to myself a lot, and have come around to the notion that if you can't get what you want, you need to take the best option you have, and that, in all honesty, may be it. What I would suggest to you is that we study the various options that there are and do it rather quickly, so with the goal of being out to bid for whatever it is we're going to do in February. Because that's when contractors are putting together their work plans. And, you know, if you can get a bid awarded in March, you know, I think that would serve the town well, among other things. I asked Rick to come up with a list of what he thinks the biggest needs are. And of course, I left that on my desk.
Can you go get it?
You can find it.
Is it right on the top?
Oh, have you seen that desk? You know, it's funny, as an interim manager, I haven't really, not always sure what I'm supposed to be doing yet. I seem to keep the desk up with papers. My suggestions would be that we look at Rick's list and we consider spending the $400,000 that we have in the bank on the most important things. That would be one thing. I would recommend that we consider the way that the project was bid last time. I told you you were a good human being, albeit earlier in the day, and I was just putting it in the bank because now you've earned it, see?
And we have that on tape.
Be fine, human being.
So, because Bethel has been financially and fiscally responsible and paying their bills and getting their debt down, they're now turning around after we've had this grant in the works for all these years. They're turning around and saying, you're not getting it because you paid off your debt.
Yes,
Well, that just doesn't
no,
sound right.
no, no, it really,
I guess I don't understand the grant system then.
I don't think anyone does.
my father was a wonderful human being, but he would swear on occasion. My mother was a wonderful human being and was totally against that, didn't approve of it. And as I've gotten older, I've become more and more like my father. And so there's been a fair amount of cursing coming out of the office in the back of them. But, you know, I can say all those things and I can, what we got to do is move forward,
Yeah.
folks. And we've got to play the cards we're dealt, and these are them. The people that loan money are rural development, the Maine Bond Bank, and private banks. Those are the three sources, and you could go to any one of those sources if it's the best deal for the town. I'm not aware that there's much of any grant money left other than rural development on this need basis formula that they use.
Yeah.
Now, you said something interesting. You said after all these years, I think because it's taken so many years, that we paid debt back right out of our eligibility. We could have closed on this 2 or 3 years ago. We would have gotten a grant. What's happened is, this last year, we paid off another payment, paid off a bunch more principal, so that we become not eligible for the grant. Very, very aggravating to any normal person, but it is the way that it is. And my anger doesn't help the town of Bethel at all. So my job, whatever, trying to figure out what that is as I go here and try not to overstep, but this is something I've been involved with, so I feel like it's up to me to at least get the town pointed in a possible direction.
Yeah.
I would just like to say a couple of things about sewer. The town owns it. The town is licensed to run it. The town just can't say, we don't like sewers, we think everyone should have their own septic tank. It just, you can't say that. You're legally bound to run that plant. And if you're gonna run it, you have to run it well. You have to take care of it. You have a road system, you have to maintain the road system. You own this building, you have to maintain this building. You own that sewer plant, you have to maintain it. And this project is part, not completely, but partially replacing equipment that's worn out. Some of those pumps are 20 years old and their life expectancy is 13. Along the way, there have been decisions made that some people disagreed with. And I don't know if they were right or wrong, and it's not for me to judge them. All I can do is talk with you about the position we're in right now. And the position we're in right now is we have a dewatering piece of equipment that's sitting outside down there that of the use it should be. You know, it needs to be in a building somehow. And it isn't, and it's not gonna be this winter. There are some safety violations that are pretty serious. And before somebody gets hurt or the town gets fined because of these safety violations, seems to me we've got to fix those, or at least have a plan of how we're going to fix them. So what I'm trying to do is to, you know, I've had a couple of weeks to really be angry, and what do they say, when you lose someone in your life, you go through stages where you have anger and acceptance, and I don't remember the things, but I know you have to get through all this stuff. And that's what the town has to do, is get through this and figure out what you're going to do next. What makes given the set of facts that you've got in front of you, what makes the most sense. So I don't expect you to resolve that tonight, but I do want to do everything I have any ability to do to convince you that we do have to move ahead. We can't just turn our backs on this. So I would like your permission to maybe get a second engineering opinion. I don't want to re-engineer the project, I just want a second opinion from somebody reputable in the field to see if any changes, we might want to consider doing things any differently before going back out to bid. For instance, it was a lump sum bid. You bid one number, and that was the project. And just based on my years of experience, I don't know that I've seen that a lot. So maybe it's exactly the right thing to do. I don't have an engineering degree, but I'd like to ask somebody else in the field that I trust to see if that's the way that this normally might be approached. And consider the possibility of dividing this project up differently, putting it out to bid, trying to save some money on it. Whether that's right or wrong, at least if we take a little time, consider that we can still put the project back out to bid before February. Just the way it is, if that's where the wisdom is to do it. And I'd like to continue to try to fix things that are safety violations, so that we can be working on the things where somebody might get hurt. I will tell you that, you know, you've got dedicated folks that work for you, that we need to provide them a safe work environment, and we need to provide them an environment where they're not fixing what seems like endless things that happen over and over and over. I mean, some of those pumps that are worn out are just worn out, and our people are getting called out repeatedly to come deal with it. And, you know, let's stop that. You know, let's fix the pumps that we all know need to be fixed. Let's buy new pumps if we have to. And so, on the back of this paper, I've asked Rick to, on the one side, on the left, he's listed what the costs were for the project that went out to bid, and those costs may not be of much of any value now. They're old numbers, they were in the bid, but they're the only numbers that we have. On the right side, he has listed those things that he thinks are important. I asked him to do it in order. I think he was reluctant to do that because all these things are important to him. But it at least gives you an idea of what some of the things on top of the list are for him on the right side of that, back of that sheet.
So he's got listed here, general conditions, $100,000. What is general conditions?
He's not here, and I can confuse enough people with my own terminology without trying to interpret his, but I'm thinking it must mean safety.
I'm thinking, when he says that, what comes to mind is that wooden deck out there next to, in between.
Yeah, but that seems to be covered by, I agree, but it
It's
seems to
right
be
here.
covered by the precast concrete deck.
Yeah.
Is that, so that precast, that would be taking the place of the wooden deck then?
Right, and so I would say we could spend a lot of time now on this, but I think there's gonna be way too much conjecture, because I have some of the same questions, I think, as Lori and Andy, probably as everyone. I think that maybe our most efficient way is to ask David to go ahead and see what he can find out, a second opinion on the engineering. And that'll give us some more useful information, I think, than
That, and I'd like
Then we have
to investigate the, what's available to the town for borrowing.
and yeah, and also looking at what happens if we say, well, maybe and I talked to David about this today, whether or not where we get with when we go with RD, we have some very specific rules that we need to follow, some of which may be more restrictive than we, and therefore expensive than how we can get the job done and still be safe and effective. So if we look at state bond funding, or as opposed to RD funding, where is the interest rate, how much can we actually borrow, and what are the stipulations on that, and then can we offset that, or more than offset that, by breaking up this and making the project, taking out of just the single bid.
Peter, as usual, is absolutely correct about there being some requirements. This type of RD funding is not subject to so many requirements as some other. For instance, it doesn't have Davis-Bacon. You don't have to pay Davis-Bacon wages with this project, so there are some things that it's exempted from. I think it probably has Buy American as part of it, so probably that's another thing I could do, is make a list of those things that RD does require and doesn't require. Let's see what those additional costs might be. Now,
Right, that would just be really useful, so that we've sort of gotten to the point now where we're starting to realize that, we all need to learn a lot more about this as individuals, because the prices are getting more and more expensive, and we just really need to know what general conditions means. What are each of these line items, because none of them are just little things that we can overlook.
I think it's a little more important than it might normally be, because I'm looking forward to being back in Norway in my recliner. And you'll have a new person coming to work for you that may or may not have a lot of experience with this type of work. And so I think it's incumbent upon the board to be a little bit more aware of some of the details of the project than you might normally. If you had an experienced manager or an engineer that you had worked with for years and had absolute trust in. I'm not saying I don't have trust in the town's engineer. I'm saying I just don't know him. I've never worked with him before, and that's all I'm saying.
Who is the town engineer?
The company is Wesson and Sampson.
Weston and Sampson.
I think they're housed out of Portsmouth. They're certainly big, and they do a lot of this kind of work. And I think they've been involved with the Bethel sewer for quite some years. But the project has really dragged on, and if it hadn't dragged on, you'd have your grant money. So hindsight is 20/20, but let's learn from what's behind us and focus on what's in front of us to deal with and deal with it.
Obviously, some kind of second opinion is gonna cost us some money, in what way, shape, or form you can find that out.
I've never really done that, but I'm interested in this case. I know some folks who would probably do it without charge, or at least give me some opinions without charge.
I've obviously expressed my dislike of the number on the left here.
Oh yeah, I don't think anyone has liked it.
Yeah.
No.
I would be much happier about going through this in steps and trying to take care of the important stuff first, but take care of that stuff with a plan in place, so that we're not wasting our money and we're not duplicating efforts or anything. I don't know if that's possible. I don't have a great solution on how to go about doing that, other than, I guess, kind of getting to know more, talking to more people, and maybe us as you know, continuing to go down there and see what.
Yeah.
But I think I would be much more on board with going through, you know, this in steps, but like I said, making sure that we're not duplicating our efforts in those steps and putting in something, you know, a $10,000 deck now, but then 5 years later, taking that out to put in a new building.
Right,
or,
exactly.
You know, that kind of stuff. Maybe we can see if that's possible, or.
Reconditioning a digester that we were planning to remove anyway.
I think it's very wise. I have expressed to the folks down there that we will do whatever we have to do to provide them a safe work environment. And I would make that same promise to anybody that works for the town in any capacity. To do anything else is, in 2018, I had to think about what year it was, but I got it, didn't I?
You did good.
Yeah, good. 2018 is not wise anymore. You just gotta keep people safe, or at least make your best effort to keep them safe. So if we have to spend some money on fixing the planking to keep it from caving in, then we're gonna have to do it. And
Yeah,
I know
spending a few $1,000s for something like that, or I just don't wanna, you know, like Peter said, fill in a tank that, you know, refurbish a tank that we're gonna fill in, you know, a few years.
you and I are in total agreement.
I don't know.
I would encourage you to talk with Richard. I think I think this is a difficult time for him. Because he values his job, he values the work that he does, he wants the best. It's hard for him to decide what's the most important things. But if I had his knowledge, it wouldn't be hard for me to figure out what was important, because, you know, safety, avoidance of pollution violations, those kinds of things are at the top of the list. And if other things can wait and don't affect those, and those are somewhat further down to me. But I think it's a hard time for Richard, but I think working with him and you folks working with him, we can work our way through this.
Is there, like, has BLS been there recently? I know they've been there in the past, but.
They have, but not since I've been here.
Can you ask him maybe if he has a list of what their improvements were, or what they required? I know we must have made some changes, but.
My feeling would be if this were a town where I was being employed full-time, I would invite them in, and I would get them to do a list. There's some danger in that, I know, but in this day and age, that's what I'd do.
I think some of that really has already been done. I think there's some,
Right, that's what I'm wondering if that already exists somewhere that we can see, because I think that would play a big role. I mean, they're kind of gonna be a third unbiased party who's gonna go in there not looking for profit, they're just going in there for safety concerns, so.
Absolutely.
And they're not gonna charge us unless
No,
we get a bunch of fines. But usually they're pretty good if you invite them in and you come up with a plan to fix things, and you do fix things, then they're usually pretty good about it.
I will investigate that, and if the list is too old, we'll invite them back. If it's still anywhere near new, we'll use that to go by.
I think it's relatively new.
I think it is too. I
Yeah,
think
maybe.
it's probably a year or
Yeah,
less.
Less, I believe.
Yeah.
Have you folks noticed with me that I have two kinds of excuses that I give? One is I haven't been here long enough to know, and the other one is I'm leaving so soon I don't want to make a decision. And I use them both.
That's all right.
Thank you for this, and
Okay.
I think I know where I'm headed because you haven't corrected me.
So do we need to make a motion on something?
No, I think I think in this case that we can just ask David to pursue finding out more about a possible another engineer looking at this, and funding, information on other funding sources.
Okay,
That would be great.
awesome.
Thank you. All right, report of the town clerk.
Absentee voting started last week, and we are already about 125 ballots in, which is really good. Last gubernatorial, we did 400 absentees, so we're right on track for that this time. And we're taking tax payments, because taxes are due November 1st.
All right, report of the town manager, things the board needs to know.
Status of the food truck? No, that's
Things that are true.
I've asked our Public Works Director to join us tonight, and when I asked him, he said there's nothing he'd rather do than spend the evening with us.
Especially the top trucks.
Yeah.
He picked me up today, and we looked at a couple of things, and I was in this truck, and it was clean and immaculate, and I enjoyed it, and I struggled to get up into it, it was very, very hot. And,
Must have worked on that all weekend.
and I thought that was the new truck, so I put it on the agenda as, you know, that the new truck had come and that would be something to celebrate. He tells me that's the truck he's had for a year. And that the new one is still on order.
Yes.
Now, when will the new one come?
It's scheduled for the end of October, 1st of November.
Coming right up.
The chassis, and then it will need to go to the bodybuilder.
You go to Fairfield,
Yes.
and it'll take them,
They say 90 days from receipt of chassis.
do you know that there's a forecast for snow in Upton coming right up? You have a truck that's been troublesome for you. How is that coming along?
We went this weekend and towed the ton truck back from Bangor. It went to Bangor, ended up with a new motor. We had that discussion in April. They put a new motor in the truck. They were not able to get the truck to fire. They've done numerous things. They've changed the computer. Needless to say, the truck still does not fire. They're at their wits' end. They've done all they can seem to do.
They changed the motor,
Yes.
and they still can't get it to fire.
Yes. It,
Okay?
Scott and I feel very responsible to the board because we're aware that the board has given its permission to do all this work. And we feel like it's incumbent upon us to solve this mystery.
the frustrating part, this started January 1st. This truck broke down January 1st.
Yeah.
January 5th, we hauled it to a dealership. We've towed it from dealership to a private garage to another private garage. Diesel fuel systems out of Bangor, this is what they do.
Yeah.
They are the, I would say, the diesel gurus in this, they figure they get close to 150 hours wrapped up in this thing that, we've been paying for parts and that's it.
Yeah.
But it's finally gotten to the point they do not know where to go from here. Their advice was to tow it to a dealership and see if the dealer can figure it out.
So it could be the engine that they put in.
It could be, yes, but it passes all the, plug it in with the computer and it passes all those tests.
Okay. But it still doesn't fire.
It still doesn't fire. It turns over, but there's no fire in it. We thought, and they thought, there's an electrical problem somewhere. They said short of us spending more money and putting a wiring harness, paying them to put a complete wiring harness in it, to them it wasn't worth to waste any more of our money.
Okay.
The mechanic we have in the shop right now, he worked for a Ford dealership for a few years. He said he's seen a couple of problems with the wiring harnesses on those Fords run between the inner and outer fender on the driver's side. He said there's been prone to corrosion problems in there. We dragged it back and he tore into the wiring harness today. He did not find any corrosion in the wiring in that spot, but two guys today spent between Google and the truck back and forth, look up, try anything we can to solve the problem.
And what about hiring somebody that specializes in electrical work for vehicles?
Well, we haven't, we've been on the, Perry Virgin.
So
They've
I was
been
gonna recommend.
on the phone with him several times today.
Yeah.
We've had several conversations leading up to this event today
Yeah,
with him.
because he's good.
Yes, he is, he's very good. We're one day in on our own here, and we're still, when we left tonight, it still did not fire, but we haven't found a reason why yet.
Would it behoove us to hire him to come over?
Well,
I'm shaking his head.
we haven't closed that door, but I don't know the right way to say this, but we're trying to use our own dime right now, but he's been graciously helping us on the phone,
Right.
give us information, and the boys go back and try to diagnose that. And then, all right, once it's that, go back, talk to him, all right, we'll try this, and then go back and forth.
Scott, I heard a couple of comments while you were talking, and one is, are you aware that other communities have had troubles with these kinds of trucks? That's not, it sounds almost shocking, but apparently it's something that's happened to some degree.
Yeah, there's been, 2 weeks ago, talking with a fellow, his truck wouldn't start one morning when he walked out. Same, his is at 13, ours is at 11, but same issues, crank over but no fire. He tried, ended up towing it down to the dealer. Dealer ended up being able to plug in and trace out the circuits and found a bad circuit.
The other thing, I've talked with Scott, I want you to know how impressed I am with Scott. I think the town's very, very lucky to have him. And I've been in the profession a long time, and I wish that I could have spent all those years with somebody like Scott. I'm not joking, I think you're very fortunate.
We gave him an award a couple years ago in the January.
They did give him an award. You didn't tell me that you got an award. Well, anyway.
You're making him blush.
Yeah, my face is getting red, I can feel it.
But I would say that both he and I are aware that their time at the garage, their mechanic's time is a resource, and if it's working on this, he's not working on something else. But on the other hand, at least for a while, a few days, if it takes that, let's try this. And bring in whatever outside help we feel like we need to as it goes, and because the truck is of no value to the town in any way. It doesn't run, it can't serve you, you can't sell it for anything, it doesn't run. I mean, so what you have to try to do is get the thing operational.
We made a commitment to it, we need to, it's frustrating, it's been a frustrating maintenance year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not the only truck with problems, but
How old is it?
2011,
Which one is it?
the Ford, the 550, the ton truck.
Yeah.
Just the way my ball has bounced lately. They said the truck broke down in January. I mean, we were able to dump the load out, but we weren't able to wash the truck before we didn't anticipate the truck was gonna be gone, but it's, other than Mother Nature rinsing out what she can, it's been sitting with some salted sand in the bed. Yeah, which has created a few rust holes and stuff that I mean, nobody anticipated that we would be without a truck for 8 months out of the 10 months out of the year now.
And the issue that I'm concerned about, because I just have been through this before in Norway, is that you get to the point where you don't have enough trucks to do the work that you have to do, and if you got a blizzard today, I'm not sure you'd be adequately trucked to take care of it, so.
Yeah, that's the whole frustration. One of our big dump trucks, since March, we put almost $8 grand in that truck. The last time we put money in it, the truck wouldn't pull up out of the fire station parking lot. And that's just, and it was 11 hours, home 11 hours from the dealership. And none of power to pull out, so it just,
And you have given it your best effort, the select board has given you approval to spend the money you needed to spend, and we still are having this problem. It's, if there was someone to blame, it would be almost easier. I guess you could blame the truck companies, but that doesn't really help, so.
Yeah, that won't get us anywhere.
So I think what you're saying, and please correct me, is you're just gonna try to keep working on these problems and keep the board advised, and if you need anything, let any of us know, and
I'm trying to be as mindful as possible of the budget and things like that, but it's,
Yeah, kindling matches, anything you might need.
I've tried to get a few to dump in the river or something, yeah, it's,
We just approved a graveyard.
Yeah, there's 3 guys on
Yeah.
this list.
What type of engine is it?
it's a diesel engine, it's a 6.7 liter
6.7?
It's a Ford, it's a Ford engine.
Ford.
Yeah.
You know, we ended up, the truck had 60,000 miles on it when it broke down.
Is any of it warranty or anything?
No. Oh, we did just receive a letter that Ford has graciously extended the DEF warranty. Diesel exhaust fluid, new vehicles run on, and we've had a pile of DEF problems with the truck, but it's,
Sounds like it's been
No
a
longer
nightmare
is.
right from get-go.
it's been a, heard through all of this that really, and I probably shouldn't say this out loud, but the 2011 Fords were, that was the year you shouldn't have bought the, you know, we know that now, we didn't know that then, type of thing.
Didn't know that then.
That was the first year, so that was the, you know, fault of that. I mean, we ended up having to purchase a brand new engine because there were no used engines available at the time. The other day, there were actually 2 available, but there were none at the time we came down to.
well, we've got one.
Yeah, we've got one now.
So it's, I mean, your permission, we're gonna try to do what we can in the shop. If we don't get anything, then we need to take the next step. I mean, with your blessing, I hope. It's narrowing in on the end of the season here, not for long. It's our truck. We have a spare dump truck, which normally we trade off or whatever. I haven't. We put a little money back into that truck to keep it because I need to guarantee that we have enough equipment to roll out when we need to
Yeah.
until we get things straightened
Well,
out.
that's why I asked about hiring somebody outside to come to the garage and physically look at it and try and figure it out.
Yeah. It's Cyrus. He's willing. I mean, he was elbow deep in it 10 minutes after he got there this morning, type of thing. He was pulling parts off and climbing in.
And he used to work for Ford?
Yes.
Okay.
You know,
That's the one
I don't know, 2 or 3 years he worked at the Berlin City dealership up here after he got out of school. It's time he puts in investigating things, or time that we're not paying somebody else to do it.
Right.
Hopefully we see the light.
Hopefully.
Yeah, like I said, it's just frustrating to, you know, you try to adapt your whole operation around. You don't realize how much you rely on one vehicle till you do not have that one vehicle, and then you try to adapt, and I think we've survived. I think
It's frustrating because I just went through something with my vehicle and I could hear a noise, but nobody else could hear it. And it took 2 weeks before the noise really presented itself to them And it was 2 weeks of me saying, there's something wrong with my car. And, you know, so I understand what you're saying, that the frustration part of it is,
I mean, we don't know for sure, but we think the problem we're experiencing now actually started prior to everything else.
you
Number
get
one,
a trickle down effect
yeah,
afterwards.
it started stalling, but it would fire right back up, and it may stall twice in a day, it may not stall at all, it may stall 10 times, but,
Mhm.
whether that was a precursor to where we are right now, we're not sure, but,
He just got the picture.
just a series of events, it's,
Scott, did you have anything else you wanted to say to the board? Or that's it for things that are going on with you that you want them to know about?
we got a couple more items on the list, once we get there, we can talk about them, but
Okay.
as far as equipment goes, like I said, it's,
The state valuation came in, and you have copies of that in your package, comes every year. The Bethel Water District has filed a 10% rate increase request with the PUD. Did I get my letters right?
PUC.
PUC. And that will also affect the town, because that's what, it'll affect a 10% increase in your hydrant rental. Maples on the Common.
yes.
Now, we've been taking down some maples on the Common, and the board has received explanations from the Conservation Committee. Did the board have any questions or comments about the maples on the Common?
No, it's just a shame that they have to go.
Yeah.
There's new ones coming, but they won't be as big.
Right.
Yeah, new trees. They had purchased new trees to plant in their place, but then realized that we couldn't plant those in place right now. We need to step back and reevaluate what species they put in.
These, I see you referred in the notes there to them as Norway maples. That they were Norway maples?
Yes,
Yeah. Which is not a native species.
No.
correct.
And I think they were thinking of putting in sugar maples, but the disease that killed the Norway maples will probably also kill those, so
Correct.
it's a soil fungus, I believe, so you have to,
Find a different.
yeah.
We still have one more tree to take down, and then we need to do some pruning of the dead out of the other trees.
Can that happen after I'm gone?
It's, we'd like to get it done as soon as possible,
Oh, shoot.
so that we can put that behind us. We've tried to handle the wood waste up there as, I'm not sure what the right word I'm looking for. We couldn't just dispose of the wood anywhere. We had to secure where to make sure that the contents were burned so that we didn't further infect any other area. I think we,
It's a soil fungus that's,
yes.
I know about those.
They're working on hybridizing new chestnut trees. 2 or 3 more generations maybe, or 10.
Yeah, there's several species that were commented about. I think that was one of them.
Yeah, I just talked to the guy at the fair last week. I was hoping that would be they're not ready yet.
Chestnut trees aren't as nice and friendly as other trees though.
They used to, the American chestnuts, not the horse chestnuts.
Oh, okay.
The American chestnuts were a huge species, even in this area, but they went not quite extinct with the chestnut tree blight. But they've been breeding them with the Chinese tree and then back and back and back and back and trying to get something that will survive the blight. But they're getting closer, but they're
We
not
have a
ready.
couple of them on the farm that have these great big huge green things that fall out of the tree all the time.
Yeah, those are
Chestnuts.
the horse chestnuts.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's a different tree.
In Bethel, there are roads that are private roads that are owned by people, not any government. There are roads that are owned by the town, and there are roads that are owned by the state of Maine. And in some cases, other than Bethel, there are roads that are owned by the federal government. In my lifetime, I have seen reclassification of roads go from the town to the state and back to the town, and that is the question, a decision that the state of Maine has made on Church Street. Now, you toured Church Street with,
Pete Coughlin.
Pete Coughlin from the Maine Local Roads, and he found that Church Street should be a local road rather than a state road.
In his opinion, yes, that the town should just assume responsibility. The state should give Church Street back to the town and let us,
Don't we currently plow it anyway?
Church Street is currently state aid, so we are responsible for plowing and sanding only, although we do a lot more than that.
In order to get it done.
Up until a couple of years ago, we did all the basin cleaning, maintenance. According to the state, all we're supposed to do is plow and sand it, but, I mean, it's a road in the heart of the village, so it becomes part of our...
And they came through and did some paving 3 years ago, and made the sewers nice and deep, and left
Yeah.
the shoulders unpaved.
Yes.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
They are talking about relinquishing and giving it back to us.
What does that just makes it a little bit more expensive for us? Does it give us any benefit, other than that we can then decide what?
I asked Peter, and he said, no, we're not gonna get any more state aid money. Eventually, you will have to repave it, and I assume some of, like the stormwater system underneath will have some maintenance and rebuilding. Some of those catch basins will have to be rebuilt eventually. So there will be some costs over time.
Yeah, maintenance costs. I mean, for a long time, we clean the basins, we take care of the leaves, we sweep the street, just things we've always done.
Can we trade with him? Can we give him a,
Well, we tried that card
Street or
too,
something?
yeah, we tried that card too, but that didn't work.
they don't wanna do that?
The state would
Just up the road.
still maintain ownership of Maine and Mill Hill, but they would relinquish Church Street as
I
far as.
think you could probably sell from the Congregational Church down to Railroad Street to Pool.
That has been, I won't say in the works, but that has been talked about before, rumored about before. I'm not sure how
I'm
that
not
would.
sure where that would get us or what.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, I
I'm
know
not sure
that-
how that would really,
The only interest I think Pool
Why?
would have in that is to stop traffic from going through there. And, child killing speeds.
I did ask the question about, the state right now, they possess all the drainage easements and things like that. Would those
Right.
be over to us or what? I'm not sure what the whole process is. According to Pete, it's just a simple letter from, what?
If we didn't want this, is there anything we can do to object to it, or do we pretty much just have to go by whatever they want?
Excellent question, an appropriate question. I have argued with him, and I was not encouraged to think that there was much hope in this case. One would think that there must be some kind of an appeal process. But the bigger question is, would you win? And this street does appear to be one that would be might be more appropriate as a local street than a state road. It doesn't get people from one place to another, it provides local traffic.
I just wanna give them one of our other streets that does, that goes through 2 or 3 towns, you know, I don't know. Maybe you don't, I mean, would it ease your burden at all to give up a road like East Bethel? Or do we not even do East Bethel right now?
No, East Bethel is state aid, so
Okay.
we plow and sand it, but
Or-
they assume everything else.
Do we do Vernon Street?
Yes. They gave us Vernon Street back,
Didn't say it
I don't
used to
say
be
how many years
35.
ago that was, but that used to be Route 35 classification. They turned that back over to the local towns and moved their designation out to Lover's Lane Route 5. That's how they got over.
Can they still do Lover's Lane? They do down to, alright.
Yeah, this is probably like owing the IRS $200 and want to fight over it. Probably just cheaper than
Well, I
sending
feel
them $200.
like it's my job to recommend alternatives to the board to consider and evaluate, but in this case, I don't feel like I have one. I do think there must be an appeal process, but I'm not confident that we win. If you would like, if the board would like, I'll investigate to see if there's an appeal process.
I don't necessarily disagree that Church Street definitely is more of a local road, I just. If we
Just a
could,
money thing.
yeah, if we could negotiate with them, if we had any grounds to stand to pass off a different cost to them or something.
Well, I will tell you that I found out about this the same day I found out about the $500,000 not
Yeah.
coming our way, so I was having a bad day, so I do agree with you.
Better end it there, Andy, he's gonna
Yeah.
start swearing.
Yeah. Well, I do believe my mother's in heaven, and I don't want to disappoint her any more than I already have.
All right, we're on to, was there any comment on the state evaluation? I missed.
I didn't make any, I thought the board would review that, and if you have any, there is a way to appeal that if any of you want. I'm not suggesting that you should, I'm just saying, on the subject of appeals, there is an appeal process.
Okay. Selectmen's concerns, comments, ideas, and goals.
But I guess I just offer up a comment on the new Dunkin' Donuts over there. It certainly, I believe, is a fine addition to everything. It certainly is not a cookie cutter box from, that you see around, and very well done, and I think it adds to our community.
It'll be interesting to see how or if traffic changes.
And then if they'd stop burning their
Yes.
coffee, they'd be fine.
We still bring coffee up.
Oh, yeah.
I just had a quick question, and that was, where are we with Chapman Street?
We visited Chapman Street today, and it's getting later in the year, and if I understood you correctly, Scott, you told me that it's at the point where it'll depend on the availability of the pavers.
Yeah, no, we were on Vernon.
We were on Vernon.
We were on Vernon, we were not on Chapman.
See, I'm new here.
You are, that's all right. We visited Vernon
Lord.
Street.
Where are we with Chapman?
Chapman Street, we talked about Chapman last week. The question was, trying to find out if anybody's heard from the engineering outfit yet on the status of our engineering. They originally had started, and then I don't know what to say, on-site engineer, but the gentleman that was doing the design work apparently changed companies. So, which left us in, I won't say limbo or whatever, but I think we've all been, have you heard from him? Have you heard from him? Well, no, I should call him, you should call him, and I don't think anybody's actually made that call
I'll call him Wednesday.
to find out where,
Yeah, 'cause it seems like, to me, like it's getting a little bit late.
Chapman Street will not happen this year, that's for sure. We signed the contract in, what, July? I
It was
think for the,
before I came to work here.
we had to wait for town meeting for approval, and then I think we signed the engineering contract in July. I think. July, August, something like that.
I'm aware of that company. I haven't worked with them personally, but I did work doing some side work for a town that was using that company. And so I'll call them and see what the heck's going on.
Yeah, that's, all right, just check, I was just making sure I hadn't like lost my mind and it all was done already.
No,
All right, yeah, I know.
it is. And I kept assuring people that yes, it is finally going to happen, yes, it is finally going to happen, but, I don't think I've made, I know I haven't made that phone call either, I think it's,
Yeah, okay, just checking. All right, any other concerns, comments, ideas,
the far end,
goals?
that's 2 years now.
Oh my God. Yeah, it was good.
Because of Chapman Street.
So what were you doing on Main Street?
We're gonna pay a portion of
That's
that.
it.
All right, hearing none, we'll move on. So we need to countersign the SAD 44 warrant.
Yeah, you need to make a motion.
I make a motion to countersign the SAT 44 warrant.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Okay, they
11
made a
copies.
mistake in my warrant. They didn't put a space for you to countersign, so as per the
Those
school's
5 on the
attorney,
bottom.
yeah, as per the school's attorney, I had to put those spaces in at the bottom for you to sign. So if
Okay.
it looks a little odd, that's why. And here's the liquor license for you to sign too.
You have a copy of the cost share.
Yeah, you just needed your,
Yeah, I had those,
your graveyard and SSDC. I think you have them right there.
yeah, I think I gave it to them.
You did.
You know, you're going to be lost now.
I know I am, I know.
You won't have anybody to take care of.
What is this, for every town? Different one for every town?
14
Yeah.
copies or something.
So it's more to raise.
Yeah, really, what?
This is the same thing.
Yep,
Yeah,
5
they're-
copies of 6 copies of that, how many compared.
There's like
Well.
eight copies of the same thing.
So you want to make sure we can sign the names.
Yeah, you need to stamp.
Good
All
night.
right, this one has three
Night.
copies that all need to be signed.
Good job, Scott.
Graveyard permit. Next.
Almost. I think we can do by now. Yep.
Great.
Yeah,
Nice
yeah,
to see that Oxford County steps right up and gets their money. Anything else? 25, 29%, they're at 100.
They have never changed their fiscal year, and they struggle with cash flow, because they're on a different fiscal year than many of the towns. I was one of some others that worked with them, trying to get them to change their fiscal year, but it's never happened.
Trying to get them to do anything that makes sense is very difficult.
They're a fine county, they just didn't change their fiscal year.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah, a little.
All right,
Itch in my nose
we
now.
need to approve disbursements.
I make a motion that we approve journal 2019, 157, 165, 168, and 182, and warrants 2019, 2019-10, 2019-11, 2019-12, 2019-13, and 2019-14.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. And when we finish signing, we need to go into executive session. Yes.
And I will ask when you make your motion for the first executive session that you include the Realtor, please, by name, if you would.
Okay, what's your name, sir?
David Brackett?
Good.